For a typical day in a salesperson's life, right? These people on every single day need to know, and when I say know, I mean master the technology of the company, the products, the personas they're selling into, the industries they're selling into, and the specific compelling events. They need to know the different competitors and their features and how we're different. And in addition to that, they need to probably know anywhere between 12 to 20 tools in their tech stack. They also need to understand the internal processes like our roles and responsibilities, ROE, all those. So this makes their lives extremely difficult. And add on to that, these people usually when they're hired, they have anywhere between 3 to 6 months or 6 weeks, to be able to start deliver. Like the company's expectation is to see value from them immediately.
Welcome to the Marketing Academy podcast by GCMO, where in every episode we sit down with a marketing expert to deep dive into a hot topic shaping the industry. I'm Yitzi Tenenbaum. Let's get started. Okay, welcome to the Marketing Academy podcast by GCMO. I'm Yitzi Tenenbaum, and today's topic is super interesting, sales enablement. How to deal with that crazy monster that is sales, and there's no one better than Rotem Doron, who leads sales enablement at Silverfort. Rotem, thanks for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited. I've never done a podcast before, so be easy on me.
I just ask questions. That's my job.
Right.
So maybe start out with I'll go an easy one for you. Tell me a little bit about you, how you ended up in sales enablement, a little bit about Silverfort.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Rotem. I am married to Barak, my love, and I'm the mother of Gani, and I'm currently running the enablement function in Silverfort. It's a cyber company, 500 people, identity security world. And I'm also the proud founder, it's important to say, of Enable IL, which is the enablement community in Israel. My first job in enablement, the formal enablement title, was in Riskified. I was brought in 2019. It was hyper growth. They were hiring like crazy, and I was brought in back then to open up the enablement team. I had no clue what enablement meant. I've never done it before. Well, looking back, I actually did it, but it was never called enablement. And I think that's part of many of the people who are in enablement now. You can hear similar stories of them kind of being in the enablement world before, but it didn't really have a name. And since then, I've led the enablement team at Czech and now in Silverfort.
There you go. Wow. I feel like enablement is very similar to product marketing. When I started out in product marketing, also no one ever heard of it. And now it's becoming more and more of a thing. And sales enablement is now becoming like the new hot thing. Mm-hmm. Why are companies waking up now and saying, you know what we need? We need an enablement function.
It's a great question. I think to understand enablement and the need for enablement, you really need to understand the complexity of B2B sales, specifically in SaaS, but not only these days. And if you think of a day-to-day or a typical day in a salesperson's life, right? These people on every single day need to know, and when I say know, I mean master the technology of the company, the products, the personas they're selling into, the industries they're selling into, and the specific compelling events. They need to know the different competitors and their features and how we're different. And in addition to that, they need to probably know anywhere between 12 to 20 tools in their tech stack. They also need to understand the internal processes like our roles and responsibilities, ROE, all those. So this makes their lives extremely difficult. And add on to that, these people usually when they're hired, they have anywhere between 3 to 6 months or 6 weeks, to be able to start deliver. Like the company's expectation is to see value from them immediately. Because they impact the revenue directly, obviously. So enablement grew from a place of understanding that someone needs to do the heavy lifting, and it can't be the salespeople. You know, at the end of the day, they just need to sell, and we need to make sure that they have everything they need to just do their jobs, and that's just to sell.
Right. That is true that they're expected to create value quickly, and I think a big part of probably of what you do is focus on onboarding, and a new salesperson comes on. How do we make sure that we're using those 2-3 weeks of grace and we're using it really well to make sure not only do they know our products and our story and our mission and values, but how do they know to answer competitive stories and talk about the competitive products. So maybe talk a little bit about how you approach onboarding a little bit.
I think enablement always starts with the pain, right? So when I'm approaching a new company and I know that they're, the first thing I'll start with obviously is onboarding, I'll try to map out the need. But first of all, start to look on what good looks like, meaning how do we sell, what deals have closed and closed successfully, meaning within the time period that we expect them to. And I try to look and understand how is a good deal cycle? How long should it take? Who are the personas who need to be part of that? What's the good talk track? What's the number one objection that comes up? And then how do we resolve it? And then I kind of reverse engineer that. And I say, well, how do I get the salespeople to the place that they get there, and how fast can I get that to happen? Usually I like to take the competency-based approach, which basically means I'm not going to give you everything at once. Usually salespeople, they, second day in their job, they're like, I want to sell, give me, let me sell. No, we're going to do things step by step. And usually we start from the story of like who we are as a company, right? Like don't even talk about selling it. Don't talk about the personas. And then every single week or every couple of days, we focus on one specific competency. You master that competency. We test you on that competency, and then we move on to the next competency. And then once you have this layered approach, you can every single time try to assess, is the new rep meeting the expectations in terms of where we want him to be? So maybe, week number 3, we see that, he's mastered the technology and the product, but maybe his pitch is not as well as we want it to be. And that's where we really have an opportunity from enablement to say, hey, let's stop. Let's try to do week 3 one more time and then move on to week 4. Because the worst thing that can happen from enablement or from a company perspective is to wake up 4 months in and to realize that this rep is not pitching correctly, he doesn't know how to handle objections, and that he's just not delivering.
I mean, that always happens, right?
Yeah.
Every X amount of reps, there's that one that it's a bad fit, and they find themselves outside of the company after a few months.
And I have to take ownership on that. Sometimes I feel like it's not the rep's fault. It's really just the enablement's fault or the company's fault. Like the onboarding process is so critical. And I've seen this happen where a rep is hired, but there isn't a good onboarding progress or program to support. And then he just drowns. Again, they're expected to get on a call and confidently pitch the product. But if he's not set up for success starting at day 1, then he can really be screwed.
Right. And as you mentioned, it is super complex knowing everything your product does. And the larger the company, the more products there are, right?
Yeah.
So you're expected to know many different industries and different technologies. And then each industry may have a different competitor, right? Mm-hmm. For this product, you have these 3 competitors. For that product, you have those 4 competitors. So it is a lot to know. And that's why I think a big part of enablement is not just the one-off, but it's kind of ongoing, and it's always making sure the reps have the most up-to-date knowledge, the most accurate knowledge. It's always learning. It's not, hey, you onboarded, now go sell. It's great, you onboarded, now we could start a journey together.
And it's so difficult, that part, because with onboarding, they almost have to learn, right? You have the time, you put them in a classroom, and they're that's the only thing they need to do to learn the product, the technology, and it's part of their onboarding. As soon as you release them to their jobs, to get them back to the classroom to then learn, that's the tricky part, because usually from enablement, you only have not one opportunity, but you have to grab their attention very fast to then make them believe that it's worth their time attending the enablement session and consuming the content that you create. And it's really a matter of trust. They need to trust that what you're giving is something that can provide value.
And so I found exactly that if they attend 1 or 2 sessions and they're not getting value, it's a waste of time, they're not going to come to the 3rd. If it's an amazing session and they're blown away and you've taught them something and they know something and they're better at it and it's to the point, they're going to come to the 3rd. Yeah. But I think it's easier said than done, is creating that value in a very consumable way. Also, and you know what, this may be a topic to talk about. You have salespeople with very diverse backgrounds, very diverse knowledge, and the knowledge they come in with, dealing with so many different levels. So if we're providing value, they'll come back. If we're not, they won't.
And it's also the matter of the channel of which you deliver. It's very diverse in terms of how people like to learn. Some people love the live sessions. They want it to be engaging. They love role plays. Others hate it. They will literally, when I put them on the spot and ask them to simulate, they will hate me for it. So it's also trying to find ways to deliver the content in a way that would fit all the people in the room, or allow them to shine.
And that's also true for marketing, right? For marketing, we look at, we have different audiences and we have to target them in different ways. Someone wants to read an ebook, the other person wants to watch a video, the third wants to attend a conference, and we have to give them all the options so they can consume the information any way they can. Salespeople tend to be the same, right? Some of them want they want to be there, they want to be able to type questions into the chat. Then there are people who want to watch it in their own time or want to listen to it in their car on the way back. We actually recently did we're a slightly bigger company, internal sales enablement podcast. On the way to work. You could put it in and you could learn and listen to a leader talking about something. So
Nice.
Right. So I agree. It's finding the different ways and giving them all the options possible.
And it's also always a balance, I feel, with the time, right? Because it's also, at the end of the day, it's endless, the amount of enablement content or value from my side that I believe I can deliver and help them. But at the end of the day, they also need to do their jobs. They need to fly out to meet customers. They need to send the emails. I'm at a point where, this year, my KPI that I give myself is like, how do I deliver and reach my enablement goals with having them experience almost like the seamless enablement experience. In the past, I was so happy and proud of, I would show my yearly calendar and I would be like, this is the amount of hours, enablement hours I want to deliver and all that. And now I'm like, oh no, I want to give them their time to sell. Like, how could I actually reduce the time that I'm taking off their calendar? How can I get to a point that I'm providing the same value with less hours of training?
So quality over quantity.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is difficult. But also, I think what you said, if there are many different ways, then also one salesperson doesn't have to attend every single thing that you do. They could pick and choose the things that work for them.
And that's why AI is the best thing that happened to enablement. Like the fact that now I can take a training hour, for example, and then transform that into a 15-minute podcast that they can now, again, listen on their way, on their flight.
Notebook LM, right?
Yeah, exactly. I use that a lot and I love it.
It's so good. It's weird. They kind of stutter enough to make it seem almost real, and it is very scary.
Yeah, and we talked about this a bit before, but sometimes with salespeople, what I experience is that they actually like the raw, ugly material and not like the polished, perfect, designed, branded, content. They like it when it's like straightforward value. That's it. No fluff. Like they literally itch when it comes to fluff. And that's why sometimes when they receive an email from me and they see like a 40-minute recording, they'll be like, oh my God, like take the fluff out. You can for sure deliver that in 10 minutes. And they're probably right. We can, most of the things that we want to convey, we can probably do that in a shorter amount of time. So
I think you mentioned a few things here. So yes, fluff across the board, people don't like, and especially salespeople. Right. And it's the same for our customers, right? But then you also spoke about the raw element, and I think that's also true, and we speak about this quite often on this podcast, is customers don't like the overly polished things. And you look at those TikToks that go viral, it's someone walking down a street or in their car, right? It's not the overly produced, overly polished. It is the raw, it is the stutter, it is the more conversational. So it's cool that you understand you need to take both of those elements to bring a more compelling story to your salespeople.
Yeah, in Riskified, I used to do a newsletter, and I remember working so hard to design it. Thought of a name and the branding, and it was such a beautiful email that came out. And we were sending it through HubSpot, and we were able to track open rate and read through rate and all that. And as soon as I started to send those newsletters, I saw that the interaction with the engagement was very low. Mm-hmm. And I went back to the salespeople and I'm like, well, why are you not reading this? This is gold. This is literally what you need. And I spent so much time creating it. And I remember one of my friends back then, one of the sales reps said oh, I just thought it was another marketing push, or he was like, no, I don't want those. And then it made me realize the month after, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to send the same content, but no design, very ugly, the most generic, like I'm sending an email, no design to the newsletter. And boom, click rates went up, read through rate went up. The fact that it was not designed, it did not look like a marketing, it didn't look like I'm trying to sell them something, so it worked. And it was so surprising to me because for me, and it shows how different it is from one person to another. I love receiving beautiful, branded. I appreciate the fact that they took the time to design it. But salespeople, they just want the bottom line. And
You know, it's really interesting, Rotem, that as we're talking, there's so many similarities between classic marketing and sales enablement, because you're essentially are marketing to a salesperson. Because that exact experiment I did with a webinar, and also I would always send a very designed email, and then just a very raw text. Hey, there's a webinar on this and this date on this and this topic, and I've spoken to other people once I did it, and it the ROI on it, the clicks were so much higher than the design one. So I keep on finding that there's a lot of similarities between our fields. But when we look at enablement, let's get down to it. What we spoke about a lot of different ways. What are the top 5-7 methodologies that you use to communicate to the salespeople? We mentioned podcast. We mentioned in newsletter. What are those top ways that you get to salespeople, and maybe talk about the effectiveness of each?
So I'll start maybe with, again, just a zoom out for a sec. I think it's always dependent based on what I'm trying to solve through that, right? Like, even with the newsletter, I always ask myself, like, what am I trying? Why do I care about the open rate? Like, what am I trying to get there? Do they actually need it to do their job, or is it a nice to have? Is it something that I want to show that I delivered as enablement, or do the salespeople, is it actually going to move the needle? So many times I start with understanding when I approach a specific project to understand how or what the methodology I'm going to use. I'm going to try to assess, again, the outcome that I want to create. For example, if we're launching a new product, usually it would almost be like a campaign of different methodologies. So we're going to have live sessions. We're going to have all the courses in the academy. We're probably going to follow up with a branded email, again, with podcasts and stuff. And we're also going to use a competition or some sort of a promotion, right, to get them excited. Many times they use something that I call whisper emails. We had a workshop on that way back, and I love that, which basically means we're launching a product today, right? We have the big launch, branded cupcakes, whatever you want, right? But then the week after, on a weekly basis, every Monday, you get a short email with a short sentence talking about the value. What do I mean by that? Rather than trying to sell you, oh, this feature is going to do this and that, I'm going to start sending you every Monday a short quote of a customer telling how much he loved that whatever, like the feature or product or whatever it is. A week after, I can send a short snippet of data showcasing that, oh, last week we had 70% growth and opportunities open with this product, to show them that it sells. So really trying to sell them the idea of this works without asking them to do anything. So there's no call to action, but literally like shoving the value to their faces, making it very digestible because it's very short. So that's one option that I love. But if I have to like talk about the methodology, it's always a mixed campaign, right? Email, videos, live, competition, like really trying to get them to experience it from a variety of different ways. Again, with the assumption that some people in the live session are going to walk out of that session saying, okay, got it, thank you, I'm going to sell it. Other people are going to be like, what was that? They were answering email throughout, so they were not engaged at all. So that's more like it. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure that was.
You did. And I do want to go back. You mentioned this, but I think we should spend some time on it, on research and how you learn. Because I feel whenever I talk to a salesperson, the need is different. Every single salesperson, and let's face it, hopefully we don't have too many people in sales listening in. Because salespeople tend to be very big characters, larger than life, very opinionated. So how do you look at when you talk to sales leaders, sales reps, how do you collect that information and then build a plan based on all the different things that you're hearing and learning?
That's one of the best things I love in my job is the research phase. It usually has to do with 3 elements. The first element would be the data, right? CRM data, like looking literally at the metrics, win rates, attainment, bookings, meeting book, like everything I can, and extract and try to understand again. First of all, what's the pain? Where are we falling short? Where do we see drop off between stages within the sales process? Maybe again, also try to understand what is working rather than what's not. Do some win-loss analysis. So really try to understand everything I can from the data before I actually start to talk with anyone. So that would be the first step.
That's very cool, by the way, not a given. You open Salesforce every day and you're saying, hey, in Latin America, we're just like we keep on losing gigantic deals with banks. Let's kind of double click on this and see what the issue is. And that's really cool.
First of all, try to understand, like, what are we seeing? What's working for us as a company? Look at the last quarter. Well, how many opportunities did we have? How many of them closed? Why did those close? Who is the persona leading that? Who was the champion on those deals? Like, really trying to understand from the data, what's the story? So that's the first step. The second step would really to go to Gong. And I've been working with Gong for 10 years now. It's my go-to. I have to say that when it comes to enablement, I feel bad for enablement people that don't have some sort of a call recording and analysis tool. I really think it's very difficult to do your job without it. But in Gong, it can really
By the way, what they should do is just actually physically go to a call as opposed to listening to a recording. You can always reach out to a salesperson and say, hey, can I...
But the amount of information you can get from analyzing bulk of, these huge numbers of calls, that's where a lot of the value is. Because then you can try to understand, well, when we're speaking pricing, small things, but like, what are the trends that we're seeing? What's working for us? What's the number one, word that comes up that we know that, sometimes what I do, I'll filter, I'll create like a folder of all the won deals and then go back in Gong and folder all the first initial calls. And compare that to the lost deals that we have in the first initial calls that we have with the lost deals,
that's
right?
So interesting.
Then I'll try to understand, well, in the initial call, the first time, how did we introduce ourselves? How did we pitch the product? What discovery questions did we ask? What was the next step that we offered? And then I'm trying to understand the trends between, well, what's working for us? What eventually got us to the point that we sold? What are the specific, like terminology that we use with specific verticals? So Gong, I rely on a lot. And again, with AI now, it makes it very easy to analyze a lot of calls because you can just download the transcripts and have AI analyze that for you.
And Gong, within Gong, you have all these different options to play around with the things. And that's really interesting. And
it's really cool. And you can really focus also on like the small behaviors, like talk ratio, right? Like what's the percentage of the call where we talk and they listen? How many questions did we ask? Even stuff like patience rate, right? Like how long does it take us before we reply to something that the prospect said? So a lot of these behaviors, it's very easy to map through Gong and extract trends and insights based on what we should and shouldn't do, and then operate on that very fast. So if we see something happening that's negative, we can kill that very fast. We can say, hey, listen, we see that when you're doing X, Y, Z, it's not likely that we're going to progress in the deal. Like, stop doing that immediately. And we can say the opposite. We can have this bird's eye view to look at all the calls across all regions, across all the different teams and say, hey, we see a new trend where there's a new objection coming up, right? The market is not in a great situation. Or even in COVID, you can see that a lot. There were a lot of specific objections during COVID because it affected so many different parts of the sales cycle. And it was very easy for us in real time to say, hey, these are the new objections that we see coming up. This is how we see it. These reps resolving it very fast. Let's take those snippets, share with the team, and have them literally say, like, duplicate it, use it. Here's an example of how this is working for this guy in Australia. Now in the US, you can use it as well. I said a lot, but that's the Gong part. And then the last part, when it comes to the research, we said data, we talked about Gong. And the last part is really just speaking with the reps. Talking to the VPs, talking with the managers, talking with the reps. And many times it starts from a conversation of like asking them more formal questions. But then it would really, I hope, and that's what I always try to do, just get them to open up like I'm their psychologist and really.
It's relationship building.
Yeah.
Right? So do you have like set meetings or is it just ad hoc or?
So I know that in that area I might be weird. I just hate formal meetings. I hate to have something in the calendar. I think from what worked for me is usually to just ping someone on Slack and be like, hey, what's that? I saw that on your call. Like, I feel like sometimes when the salespeople feel like they're part of a bigger process, they tend to push back. Like, if they know that I have this recurring meeting where I ask them specific questions and they need to provide stuff, it's more hard for them to open up. When they're just chit-chatting and like almost like crying about stuff that are not working and like giving me the inside gossip, that's where I get a lot of the information.
No, I definitely agree. You get a lot from salespeople over dinner, over alcohol somewhere.
Oh, yeah. SKOs are the best times to like get.
We definitely need to go into SKO. Yeah. But also the benefit of salespeople is they always have what to say. They're very rarely are they shy. They're very happy to share what frustrates them, what isn't working, what they like, what they dislike. So that's a huge benefit with that role. So you obviously are collaborate with a ton of different functions in an organization. Can you walk me through who your top collaborators are? I'm sure you work with marketing, you work with product. So, like, could you walk me through who the teams are that you work with and in what way?
Yeah, I have one story that I just remembered, sorry, on what you just said about the relationship that I think is relevant. Again, in my previous company, we were doing a product launch. We were moving from a single product to a multi-product, very common for a lot of companies. And we had one product that we needed to launch. And from an enablement perspective, I swear it was a perfect launch. We did everything right. Everything was there. All the deliverables. We mapped out what each team needs, and we delivered it on time, and it was so amazing. And I remember sitting back and being like, oh, this is a nice project that I just did. Like, I can talk about it in podcasts. I can talk about it in meetups. 6 months after, the product is not selling. Like, not selling. No opportunities created. People are not talking about it. The default was to send out a survey to be like, well, what are you missing? You know? And my default, and I think internally the conversations were, oh, they're not enabled on it. They need more enablement. You know, we need to get them into class again. We need to certify them. Like, the default was they need more of the same, right? More of what we did. And my default was just to go with it, to say like, okay, I'll deliver. I'll do more enablement sessions. And I had a conversation with one of the sales guys who was a friend of mine. We sat on lunch, and it was him and two more guys. And I was trying to say like, well, why is this not selling? Like, trying to get something from them. And I remember one of them randomly said, well, why should I sell it? Like, I'm not getting paid for it. And I was like, what? And it obviously, that moment it hit me. The pain was not in enablement. They got the product. They understood what they need to do. They got the process. Everything is there. There was no incentive. We didn't attach a spiff to it. The comp plan never changed. So we launched this huge product. We just expected them to go sell it. But they literally had no incentive to do that. And I think that's when we talked about like relationship building. Sometimes that's not something that you can get out of a survey. They will never, you don't know to ask that in a survey. And anyways, I thought that's relevant when it comes to the research.
That's a really good
part.
point. I've seen that a few times where salespeople do weird things. I remember seeing where they would split a deal between 2 years because there was some kind of cap that over that cap, the spiff went down. Spiff is a very strong tool, and I'm sure it's extremely hard in every company to influence it and to change it. But it is an enablement tool, and you need to know how to use it. But going back to where we were talking about the different stakeholders and how you work with them.
Okay. So my day-to-day basically would be, my main people are like stakeholders or sales leadership and salespeople. Other than that, I work very closely to product marketing. And then many times it would also be rev ops or sales ops. Again, they're part of my day-to-day.
Do you have a competitive intel team?
In this company specific, no. But usually in my previous jobs, we did have someone.
Interesting.
And it was either in product marketing or in rev ops.
Right.
Yeah, so I work with them closely also. Today, I also work closely with the strategy team because they're tied directly to a lot of the strategic initiatives that have to do with the go-to-market teams. But usually it's this triangle between product marketing, enablement, and rev ops. And sales is obviously my day-to-day.
Right. It's taking the product, super technical, kind of working it into a story and finding the right channel and then bringing it to the sales person.
Yeah, and I think many times it's like, these are the supporting systems that a company has to offer to the sales org, right? Product marketing, or here, part of their jobs is to support the sales org and the in our need or what's the word? I'm missing the word. Like the attempt to sell, right? Rev ops and sales ops, in that part, they're trying to Operationalization, like to...
Oh, operationalize?
Operationalize. That's the great word. Hard one. The sales stage. And then enablement is really there to try to make sure that the salespeople are getting those two teams, eventually what they need from them, and then making sure they know how to operate on them.
Right.
That's the bottom line. So I can give you an example. In the company that I work in now, they have a great, amazing product marketing team. They are creating tons of great, high-quality content. But many times the sales teams really don't know what to do with it. You know, the product marketing team is constantly letting them know, like, oh, we released this content. We have this new one-pager. We have this webinar. Like, they're like, okay, great, cool. Like, good job. You know, they're not really doing anything with it. And then that's where I see my job to come and say, wait, what's the value? How do we expect them to actually use that on their day-to-day? And then how do I enable them to a point that they understand that, okay, in this part of the sales stage, that's where you should use this specific one-pager. If you're going after a prospect in this vertical, talking with this persona, oh, you have this amazing content that product marketing just did. So it's really trying to, again, make it very deliverable in terms of how we want them to, digestible, that was the word, to use it. And also with sales processes and sales ops training, right? Many times sales ops needs the salespeople to do something, to change something in their day-to-day. It can be rules of engagement. It can be territory split. It can be new sales fields added in Salesforce. Small things, but salespeople hate those parts. So it's up to me many times to say, well, how do I sell them the idea that they should use this new tool, that they should use this new field in Salesforce, that this new rules of engagement report or this territory split, it's actually for them. It's not us trying to, bug them. It's us trying to really do something that would help them at the end of the day.
And it goes back to what we talked about of trust. But I will say, as a product marketer, a huge part of what I do is enablement. Because I could make the prettiest web page or the most informative solution brief. I could have the best product. But if a salesperson doesn't know to go to a customer and talk about the value, talk about the unique selling point, talk about why it's great, it's kind of that it's a very important link in that chain, and it's usually that last link. So doing it right, and I think it's probably one of the most complex things to do in my role, because I know how to build a web page. That's very easy. It has very clear steps. How to enable, as you mentioned, there's no right or wrong way. You kind of have to do all ways and get to different people in different ways. So it's a huge part of what I do, and I think that's why we have you here, Rotem, to talk to marketers about it. Especially, obviously, in the B2B world, making sure the salespeople are speaking in the language that all the marketing collateral speaks, and they understand the value and they're able to communicate the value, is a really important piece of our puzzle.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel also when it comes to product marketing content that they create, it's very critical, the timing and the need, right? Like sometimes you can create this amazing, whatever it is, like
pitch deck.
Exactly. But if it's not tied to something that they're working on that's relevant for them right now, they're not going to use it. Right? Again, I can give you the same example about the product that we launched back then. I remember product marketing, for some reason, they weren't aligned on the timeline, right? And then they were releasing a lot of really great content, but on another topic, on another product. But that month, we released this new product, a different product. So it was like not correlated at all. Like, you're releasing a one-pager to talk about this product where this focus right now is on a different product. So why and how should I use that? It's just not relevant.
Right. It has to be very relevant. Then the flip side is also knowing to say no, right? We get a ton of asks from the field, and some of them are spot on, and you hear the same request coming in again and again. You're like, oh, crap, I should really build a pitch deck for the healthcare industry because I'm hearing so much about it, and it's the right product market fit. But then sometimes there's a request that's very niche, that's very specific, and you know what? Maybe it's not the right use of your time. So I think there's also a flip side of that, of knowing when to say no.
Yeah, it's really important. And it's also, before even saying no, just challenging them. Like, why do you need it?
Right.
Why do you think that's going to work? Like, why do you think that's going to move the needle? And I like to have like three whys. Like, why? Like, ask it 3 times and be like, but why? Don't get it. And that usually really gets them to a point that they can.
Is that a trick you learned from your kids?
It is.
Tools. I feel like tooling is very complex. I will admit I've never used HighSpot, but I always find it as especially when I work at smaller companies, when there's not a very set methodology.
Yep.
I find it hard to find the right tools, because I do believe that all enablement content should live in the same place, right?
Yeah.
So if I am talking to a financial company, I want to be able to go into a folder, and in the folder is a pitch deck, in the folder is a solution brief, in the folder is a competitive battle card, and I have all my collateral in that one place. And I've done different things. I've bent SharePoint to do like a whole kind of enablement center. I've sadly had to use just a Google Drive, just like a folder and like subfolders. Larger companies will have like set platforms. So talk about from your experience, what do you use? What have you used? What have you evaluated?
So I love HighSpot. I'm not using it.
I've never used it. What
so
is it for
HighSpot
those?
basically, their mantra is basically to get you the right content in the right time in the right place, right? The idea is to say salespeople live in Salesforce, not because they love it, because that's the one place that they can really choose. That's their CRM. And in 90, I think, % of the companies, they have Salesforce as their CRM. So that's their day-to-day, right? The idea is to say, the main gap many times in enablement and product marketing is to get them to use the content. With HighSpot, what you're able to do is trigger the content based on the Salesforce field that they fill in. And then the content lives within Salesforce. What does that mean? I'm a salesperson. I go to an opportunity stage and I fill out, okay, the industry is healthcare. The segmentation is enterprise level. And the competitor is whatever, CrowdStrike, okay? Automatically at the right side of the page within Salesforce, I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to actively do anything. I don't need to search anything. It's pushed to me. I get the battle card based on the field that I created. I have all the materials based on the industry that I selected. I have maybe specific sales plays based on the fact that I filled out enterprise, right? So the idea is to really get to the salesperson to a point that he doesn't need to do anything actively.
That's so cool.
It's so cool, right?
So you're filling out an opportunity. Boom, here's the pitch deck.
Yes. And you would have done that anyways, right? You need to fill out an opportunity either ways. Like, it's not something you can choose.
Right. You're an SDR, you're talking to whatever. Hey, here are the qualifying questions.
Exactly.
That is very cool.
And think about the alternative. The alternative right now for people who don't have HighSpot, obviously HighSpot has competitors, so there are many companies doing the same. I just have a great experience with HighSpot. But the alternative is for the salesperson to create the opportunity in Salesforce, but then go out of Salesforce and then try his luck. Try to find the content that he needs, right? Maybe they have SharePoint. Maybe they have Drive. Maybe there's so many things you can do, but it means that he actively needs to go through the process of searching it. And then also, let's be honest, many times as soon as they get to what they thought they need, it's maybe outdated. Maybe, they were looking for one thing and they got to another. And it's just very hard to try to push content their way when it's hard logistically to find it because of the tools in place. So HighSpot just makes it easier.
It's funny. I never even thought of that as a challenge of, hey, yeah, you may have everything set really well somewhere else, but they may not go there.
Yeah, because let's be honest, salespeople, they're lazy.
Yeah, I was wondering if you would say it.
Yeah, but I get
lazy.
it.
They're talking to customers. They're flying across the country, across the world to talk to them.
Exactly.
Their phone is blowing up with something happening all the time. They don't have time to start going through.
And also think of their characteristics, like the people who they are.
Right.
There's the part where they're good at, which is the selling part, and then there's the administrative shit, right? Which they hate.
Yep.
So our job is to really just try to make it easier for them.
Wait, so let me challenge you, Rotem.
Yep.
You said you don't have HighSpot. What do you do with the lack of it?
It's a great question. I'm trying to
because
get my
most of our listeners probably don't have. Well.
No, I'm kidding. Well, first of all, I'm not kidding. I'm actually trying to...
We should get them on as a sponsor.
Yeah, we should. But now we're actually... So it's interesting. Now, it's a very early stage. We are trying to develop an internal AI tool. That would
like
be
a chatbot type of thing.
Yes. So it's in the process, very early stages. Hopefully, I'll have something to share. But the idea is to try to get AI to run... within Salesforce, it's important to say you can easily create the triggers, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a problem for you you just need someone from the Salesforce team to do that for you. But so the idea is to have the Salesforce team work closely internally here with it's a few teams that are involved, but we're basically trying to develop an internal tool.
Where would it just give me like different links, or would it answer questions?
No, so it's a good question. Now, because it's internal, it would only it will surface the links.
Okay.
So again, you would need to jump back and forth from Salesforce, but the links would be triggered based on the opportunity field you fill out, and the links would surface within Salesforce. So you're still staying within the same.
I mean, look, if it's
page.
in Slack, I think they spend enough time in Slack that's
a good
good
point.
enough. But what you could also do is have a chatbot where you could say, hey, I'm talking to a mid-sized company in the utilities industry, give me 3 qualifying questions, right? Like that could be the next level of sales enablement.
Let's open a company. That's actually a good company.
There you go.
It's a good product to have.
Compete with HighSpot. Don't buy HighSpot. You mentioned 3 letters that is probably the gold standard, and something at least from product marketing is everything I would ever hope for. I'm sure for you it's even more than that, and that is sales kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
Sales kickoff is 2 days, it's 3 days, it's 4 days. It's all salespeople from wherever they are come to one place. Talk a little bit about how you approach that, because I know for me, it's just a few days that I could reset. I could get everyone in a room and engage with them and talk to them. But it's very much a hit and miss. And I've been to sales kickoff that were a failure just because it was people coming and lecturing, and it was just so boring. And then I later learned how to make sales kickoff exciting. And, salespeople, like, their jobs are to talk. Putting them in a room for 7 hours, for 9 hours, and say, hey, here are 8 lectures that you need to listen to is probably the closest thing to hell that you could give a salesperson. How do you start preparing for sales kickoff? What works? What doesn't work?
Whew, it's $1 million question. So SCO, like you said, it's like our biggest project of the year usually. It really depends. I've been in companies where they saw SCO as an opportunity really to like restart, and set the stage and the tone for the year. So it was really this huge opportunity of like, this is everything you need from enablement to start the year well. And like, it was really used as this enablement platform. And then the way to build that was really from a place of again, like a huge needs analysis and pain analysis to understand, well, what we did well last year, looking back, what were the wins, what were the losses, looking forward to next year, like what's going to get me to succeed, and then really building SCO based on this is the processes, these are the tools, this is the product, like this is everything you need, now go out and sell, So that's one, I guess, approach, right?
The way you're saying it is that that's not the right approach.
No, actually, I love that approach. I think it's just we have to remember many times that's actually the approach that I believe in. I do think that flying everyone out and getting them 5-star resorts, usually it's like, it has to be a balance between like having fun and getting drunk and like building relations, but there has to be, like, there's a huge enablement opportunity here. From my experience, though, many times it starts well, but it ends up just being what you said, which is 8 hours of lectures of like, here's a new tool, here's a new process here. And then from their side, they're like drunk, hungover, and they just want to go back to the pool. So
in one of the SKOs, we gave out a hangover kit
that's good.
The following morning with like Advil and
that's
like
good.
Little,
I like that. Maybe I'll do it this year. No, I think my approach is, yes, we need to treat this as a huge opportunity, but we also need to be aware of a few different things. A, they're probably going to be hungover, which is fine. B, the most important part of SCO, I believe, is to have them celebrate. Again, these are people who are working. Most of us don't know what it's like to work under that much pressure when it comes to end of quarters. You have your own quota. Like many of these people, their moms, their dads, like most of their salary comes from their bonuses. So it's a lot of pressure, right? And again, when we're talking about B2B sales, specific selling to enterprises, we can talk about 1.5 year long deals, right? These are huge deals. It takes a very long time to get to the finish line. So SCO is a lot about celebrating the wins, allowing them to build that relationship that's hopefully going to help them out later that year.
And learning from each other, right?
And learning, exactly. And that's the point. So that's what I was about to say, is that many times the enablement opportunity is missed when we have all the executive team on stage and not the salespeople. Or we have everyone sitting in a room passively listening to these sessions, but they're not interacting. I believe the good approach would be Obviously, we need some updates. Obviously, we need some main stage events. But you should also use the time when we have everyone there to do roundtables, to have engagement sessions, to have small group sessions, to really have someone from APJ talk with someone from the US, to have someone from the commercial team sit with someone from the renewals team, like really have that knowledge here. Have the people who won the biggest deals get on stage and maybe even do a retro to understand what didn't work. And the best thing in SCO, by the way, is if you can fly out a customer, that's hands down the best.
It's funny because I found that exact same approach of not having just lectures, but having them talk to each other. You'll have senior salespeople or salespeople who had amazing deals that they could share the knowledge. They know competitive knowledge. So I'm a huge fan of smaller, more intimate roundtables, conversations, sharing knowledge. In my opinion, a good SKO will have 1, 2, maybe 3 45-minute lectures. Yes, I think that, the CEO,
you have to,
the CEO needs to give their spiel, and that's fine. But I think there's a lot of value because I don't know about you. I cannot sit for 8 hours and listen.
Hate it.
No, everyone does. And I agree. I think sales kickoff needs to be fun. But I also, when you talk to salespeople, they want to know the knowledge. They need it. But we need to communicate it, in my opinion, in a fun and exciting and engaging way where they're part of the conversation and not just a recipient of it.
We did a pitch competition last year, which was great.
I've done those before. Also, every single salesperson, and what we did was everyone had to send in a video prior to SKO. We chose the top 5, and then there was a panel of judge. But it has to be engaging. It has to be fun. It has to be sales plays and exciting, and not just, hey, here's another lecture.
And think about it. Most companies, it changes between company to company, but most companies have some sort of regular cadence when the company has like a company update, either monthly, quarterly. So you do hear from the leaders throughout the year. You hear from the executive team. So if you get everyone, you fly everyone out to a distant destination, and then you have the executive team again go through like these 45-minute sessions, like do the product roadmap and a company update, and like it's not worth their time. It's just a waste of time. And think about it, if you're trying to tell them, hey, go sell, it's more valuable to have them say that to the rest of them. Like it's more likely that the salesperson will listen to another salesperson if he tells him, hey, this is what worked for me, rather than having, for example, the CRO say, hey, we've seen this working. Like, no. Have someone who actually did this get on stage and talk to them, layman's terms, tell them what worked.
Right, success stories. And we'll do that at SKO, but also throughout the year. You have a really good story of someone who sold something and a great case study. They will come and they'll talk about the deals and what worked and what didn't work. What mistakes did they have along the way? By the way, failures, if a salesperson is willing to talk about something that won't work, it's usually way harder to find. But 100% sharing their stories, what worked, what doesn't work. Because if I'll go tell them, hey, these are the questions you ask because I did all this research, that's believable. But if the person who sold the biggest deal in last year comes and says, these were the qualifying questions, these were the personas I spoke to, I think it hits a lot harder because it's real, right?
Exactly. There is no better way to enable someone rather than showing them. So again, if you want them to use a specific product marketing content, get them on stage. Have a team of people who sold a specific deal and have like the SE, the AE, the SDR, a product marketing person who was involved in creating content to support the deal. Like have everyone who was part of it, and then literally just tell the rest of the audience like what you did. That's it. And I think just to summarize, I think if there's 2 main points to remember when it comes to like preparing for SCO, just assume that people after 20 minutes are not going to listen to anything you say.
I like that.
Just assume so. It doesn't matter how important you think what you have to say is. Just try to make it 20, 30 minutes tops. 30 minutes is probably okay. That's the first thing. And second, always balance it between, again, the passive experience and the active. It has to be interactive.
So maybe that leads me to my next question on like out of the box ideas. I'm sure throughout your career, and I know I've done some fun and crazy things. 'Cause I think those are the things that work. So I want to know if you have any interesting out of the box ideas that we could steal.
Ooh, that's a good question. One thing I did which landed really well. So we had a problem with SDRs or all the sales org, but it started with the SDR org in my previous company where they were selling to people, right, to personas, but they really didn't understand the personas. Now we created like small cards that were very cute about like meet the persona and with like a short, like we did everything right again in terms of like to get them to a point that they understand who they're selling to, but they didn't really, and I get that because they never really came across these people. So what we did a persona blitz and we reached out to different people. Again, I just used my connection and reached out to people that I know and just did like every week, every Tuesday, short, like meet the persona.
Get to know the CISO,
Yeah, and we asked the people to send like questions in advance, but even if they didn't send a lot, it was more of like an open conversation. And it got to a point that it was very funny. And the crazy part was as that every time I would surprise our guest and ask them to share, like literally share a screen and show us their email, like inbox and see what other competitors are reaching out to him and like see what cold emails they're getting. And yeah, so we really wanted to understand like what's your day to day as a persona that we're reaching out to, like what do you care about, like show us your KPI Monday board, or like what are you evaluated on, show us your calendar, what meetings do you have every day, what emails are you getting. So that wasn't crazy, but it was creative and it was great. And what else was crazy one? I'm trying to think. I think just a lot of competitions.
Competition is yes, it's and they like it because they're very competitive in nature, and so it gets them involved, or different prizes and look, President's Club and all of those things are obviously a big driver.
A lot of like also gong call analysis, like a lot of stuff again to like just get them to physically be part of it, not anything that's not just you talking their way with them not doing anything.
So as we kind of near the end of our time together, probably the most challenging issue that you have is measurement. How do you measure success? What does success look like? Because obviously you have a big effect on sales, but you are not like, you can't attribute everything, you can't attribute success or failure to enablement alone.
So measurements is probably it really is the hardest part in enablement. And it's like you said, it's like the fact also that the sales teams are so measured upon everything they do is like a blessing and a curse, right? Because I can, measure everything I'm doing very easily, but the question is then, do I want to, like you said, like attach that to my KPIs, right? For example, if I do an analysis and I say, okay, listen, I see that there is a big problem in discovery. They're not doing discovery well enough. All right, I can do a discovery workshop. And then it's very easy for me to try to understand, well, how many questions are they asking? And do I see that close, impact the win rate eventually? But do I want to say, if the win rate's going up, is it because of me and my discovery workshop? Like, no, and that's not fair to take all the credit for it. So I always like to have this like very vague KPI of just saying like, my KPI is just making their lives easier, and then taking it into small actions of satisfaction, on my training. So are you even liking it? Are you attending it? How do you feel about the trainings and enablement in general? I'm sorry, that you're getting. Like, do you feel enabled, first of all? Are you missing anything? And then it's per project, right? So again, if I have a specific project around trying to impact specific drop-off rates between discovery stage to demo stage, then I can then say, okay, I will measure that specifically. But I think the problem many times in enablement is the strategic decision whether I want to attach myself to specific metrics or not. And I just like to take it case by case, right? To say for this project specifically, I am going to take this specific metric and try to attach it to this project, not to my yearly KPI, but to this project. So I'm doing a workshop around demos, right? I create a new demo flow and I train them on it. I then want to track in Gong, first of all, that they actually implemented that, right? They're using it, they're adopting to it. And then I want to try to understand, are we moving more in the stage between demo to negotiating or whatever it is? That was long. I don't know if it was clear.
No, it definitely was. And it is a hard question.
It's
so,
a hard
so I
one.
do accept it. A lot of marketers have to do enablement. And as opposed to you, we're not professionals in it. We kind of wing it and learn as we go. the benefit is Rotem, you have built together with GCMO a course on sales enablement. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So it was built from the understanding that many times, again, specifically in Israel, it's important to say, many companies still do not have a specific function that's dedicated to enablement.
Correct.
And then many times, product marketing specifically, but not only, it falls, like you said, on the product marketing team to enable the teams. Now, again, we talked about enablement now for 40 minutes, right? So, like, it's a big thing, enablement. And the idea was to say, if you're a product marketing person right now, or you're going to get into product marketing, if you're product marketing who's going to open a team of enablement, it's going to sit within you, or you're the one delivering it yourself, come and learn. It's going to be a great course. We're going to focus a lot about what it is and what you need to do to become an enabler, and what goes into your day-to-day. We're going to give real examples of the content we create. Again, best practices in terms of how to use product marketing content and push it to the sales team. But also, this course is really going to be focused on AI, because the assumption is if you're product marketing and you're also doing enablement is not your primary job. So how can you really leverage AI to do a lot of the important enablement jobs or work for you? So I invite everyone to join us.
Yeah,
to
check out the GCMO website to learn more and to sign up. It sounds quite exciting. Rotem, thank you so much. Before we go, I want to thank Google, who housed us for today. Google for Startups is a great place to come if you are a startup. I want to thank Rotem Simon, who is our producer and helps us with making everything cool. If you like this episode and enjoy our podcast, leave us a like, subscribe, give us a 5 stars on the Spotify app. And yeah, Rotem, thank you so much for being around. This has been fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Until next time.